Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside John.
Hello.
It's just us tonight.
It's just us, just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Yeah, Dave is
We're,
on the sick
we're
list.
smiling like that's a good thing. It's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing. We're just smiling because we just found some new features in our in the thing that we use in order to record, and it's made us really geeky and sad because we're like, oh my god, it's amazing. So that's why we're smiling.
We only have to press one button instead of many.
I know, it's so good. It's gonna be so handy. And then also it doesn't matter. Let's not bore people. We can geek out about it after the podcast. Yeah. Dave is off because he is ill, so hopefully he's feeling better soon. And Aaron, unfortunately, Aaron is away to have a lovely evening with his good, lovely wife. I think he said something like the Claude in the State or something like that. So, living it up, fancy style. So hope they're enjoying their evening. John, how are you doing?
I'm good. Managed to get away for a nice little holiday last week. So I was down in Yorkshire for a couple of days and then down to very close to Nottingham to go to Alton Towers for a couple of days. So it was very nice to get the little girl away for her first sort of theme park holiday. She absolutely loved CBeebies Land. I'll be totally honest, I loved CBeebies Land too.
Nice. Yeah, we've seen a few of the pictures obviously online, and you'd sent a couple in our WhatsApp group, our WhatsApp chat and stuff. It did feel, I'll be honest, it did feel like you were on the road for forever. I was like, is he still on the road? Is he still driving? Is he still out and about? But yes, good time had.
Just constant, no more than 2 days in one place. So it started in Gateshead, then one night, 2 nights in Leeds, and 2 nights in Alton Towers, and one night just outside Blackpool. With then a wonderful 4.5-hour drive home on the Friday before going straight to work on the Saturday.
Oh, well, you were off for a bit there. You have to go back to work at some stage.
Honestly, that was just bad planning on my part. It was bad planning. I shouldn't have been working the Saturday, but I agreed to it. But that's my problem.
That is. Good. I'm glad you had a good time. So you probably missed some of the hockey. Did you keep an eye on it? Yeah, no, all good. Yeah, it was a busy weekend, including a broken down car, which caused a bit of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apart from that, it was a busy one. Yeah, all good. Trying to think what else we did over the weekend. I don't really know, but I know there was no hockey here in Belfast, so it was more online watching X for the scores and stuff to come rolling in, as well as obviously flash scores. So yeah. We're looking forward to this weekend. Hopefully get down to the arena on Saturday night, possibly for a short bit, to watch part of the game anyway, if not the whole game. I might only be able to go down for like the first 2 periods, but we'll see. Hopefully that happens. Otherwise, there's still more games to be played in SSE this week, this month, I should say. I think there's another 3 or 4 games this month, which I'm planning to go to the rest of the ones this month. So fingers crossed. We're looking forward to that. You haven't been in any live games yet?
No, and I was going to say, I am hoping that, apart from Fife, it was a Fife Manchester. It was quite a spicy game. But I'm hoping that my first Giants game, and I really, really hope that my wife is currently still busy putting my daughter to bed and doesn't hear this because I haven't asked her yet, is next Saturday. I am hoping that I'm going to get the home life okay to take a drive out west and head to just slightly outside of Glasgow to the lovely Renfrew to go and see the Clan face off against my own Belfast Giants.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully that does happen. I did see that I think the Belfast Giants, I think it's Glasgow and Belfast are facing off against each other on, I think it's the night before Halloween. I think is that the next one at home game that we're against Glasgow, I think, and it'll be the first one because they cancelled the last one or something. I don't know. It's coming up anyway, sometime soon anyway.
Yes, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. They're facing off at the SSE on Wednesday, the 30th of October.
Thought so. All right, John, if you're happy enough, well, let's do what we always do before we get into our main part of our podcast, and let's run through the current standings in the Elite Ice Hockey League and the Challenge Cup, if that's okay. So we'll start off with the elite league. Sitting on the top, we have the Cardiff Devils, having played 3 games and on 6 points. We have the Manchester Storm are in second place with 3 games played and 4 points. Belfast Giants have played 2 games with 3 points. Guildford Flames have played 1 game with 2 points. Coventry 1 game, 2 points. Sheffield 1 game, 2 points. Glasgow have played 4 games and scored their first 2 points of the season. And the Nottingham Panthers have played 1 game and no points. Dundee and Fife are down in 9th and 10th, having played 1 game, no points, and 3 games and no points. John, let's start with the top of the table. Cardiff Devils currently leading at the top. 3 games played, all full points have been scored in those 3 games. And Manchester Storm, starting as they always do pretty much every season with a good run of form, getting the points early in the games that they've played. What's your thoughts so far?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me apologise to Dundee and Fife for accidentally cutting them off on the graphic here. I'm just looking at my screen over here and I have absolutely no idea how I did it, but massive apologies. It's not because you're in the bottom 2. I'm not just taking playoff positions here at this early stage in the season. Yeah, Manchester doing exactly what you said. They do this every single season. I don't know if it's their fixtures that kind of suits the way that their season starts to kind of get them on a roll early, and maybe they don't face, in inverted commas, the big teams very early on. I don't really know. I don't know their schedule. But yeah, they do this every season. They seem to have done it for the last couple of seasons now, where we start off thinking, oh, Manchester, are they in the mix here? Are they looking top end of the table? And then within a month or so, we just see the sudden collapse towards the bottom end and scraping through for playoffs from about the end of October, start of November. You can't look away. I know it's very, very early. It's hard to read anything really into this table, the way that it sits, but Cardiff Devils look to be a very impressive team this season. Haven't dropped a league game yet. So this weekend, we've got Cardiff, or Belfast. I say we. Belfast have Cardiff, and after the pre-season grubbins that they got from Belfast, I think we're going to see a very, very different sort of Cardiff. Especially when you consider, I think it's league competition. Well, no, it must be league competition that they're going into. So they obviously have a good start that they're going to want to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say that's very noticeable about the 2 top teams in the first and second place is their goal for average, or the goal for. I know it's not on your graphic there, but the goals for Cardiff Devils after the first 3 games is 11 goals for and 3 goals against. And the Manchester Storm have 14 goals for and 16 goals against. I mean, if you look at the goals for, that's some firepower that they're putting in. Okay, Manchester are letting in a bit more goals than what they're scoring, but like it's not that much. But Cardiff Devils looking impressive. Ben Bounds, obviously, they've got a tandem there, obviously, but I know this past weekend Ben was playing, and I think he played very well this past weekend. And I think that goals against is definitely kind of stands out for the fact that they have so much firepower going in. So it does look quite impressive. Now, having said that, Belfast Giants sitting in third, 9 goals for, 6 goals against, having dropped 1 point against the Sheffield Steelers this past weekend whenever the game tied, went into overtime. But the Belfast Giants have started off strong. We noted the fact that the Belfast Giants, with the different variations of the players, it's been quite. It hasn't just been the same players scoring each game. I mean, there's been a variety. Now we've got some strong players who've obviously here of note so far, but it's been quite across the board. Or am I wrong in saying that?
No. It's very, very clear that I think offense is going to win trophies this season. The goals for across some of the top teams are massive. What's incredible going to be very, very important. It's important in every single season. It's important in every sport. But as important as offense is, defense is incredibly important. And the stats coming out of Cardiff just now, obviously, you said there's a tandem goalie set up there between Ben Bounds and Matt Carruth. They seem to be the form net mining duo at the moment. Now, I'm saying that we haven't seen Sheffield really hit their stride yet. I don't think especially in league play. we saw an incredibly tight game between Sheffield and Belfast. I think netminding was incredibly key in that game. It was a low-scoring affair. I think it was it 3-2 was the final result, and that was the result of a shootout. So it was a 2-2 game across what 60, 75 minutes, 70 minutes of ice time. So yeah, I think the netmind, and actually we're going to talk a little bit about netminding kind of as we go into period one in particular, because some teams are already starting to make interesting changes. Whether it's the changes that we necessarily want to see, I'm not totally convinced, but yeah, netminding seems to be hugely up there on coaches' lists and teams' lists this season. And let's say good offense, good defense can win you a trophy. A bad netminder or netminding duo can lose you trophies, and all the teams seem to be very well equipped in that particular area this season.
I think it was actually just before we moved on to look at the Challenge Cup standings. I actually was going to ask you the question of we know you kind of alluded to it there, obviously with the goaltending issue. We know that one team particularly has new goaltending has been announced and coming in, and that's obviously up in Fife, up in Scotland. Fife sitting there at the bottom after 3 games played and having scored no points yet in the league. Dundee are 9th with 1 game played and no points, and then Nottingham obviously on 1 game played and no points. Again, really early doors, but Fife starting off struggling a bit there, but we know what the issues are there with Fife.
Well, clearly the issues in Fife. You look at the stats and they'll tell you what the issue is in Fife is that they're not scoring goals. The Kazakh contingent were seen as being this high firepower team, and that has not come to pass. Now, it's incredibly interesting. We are going to talk about the netminding change in Fife very soon. But to me and to a lot of people, that's not what needs changed there. They need goal scoring. They need some way to win games and claw games. Right now, they're just not in that position at all. Which is, if you're a Fife fan at this point of the season, they're sitting 7-15 goals for, goals against. They're being outscored 2-1 on the game nights. Shane Owen is a great netminder, but he cannot contend with that sort of plus minus on the score sheet. He's not going to claw back a 2-1 goal differential across 60 minutes of ice time. That's just not going to happen. He will snatch you wins if you keep the score tight, but he's not going to go out. He can't go out and score the other 2 goals that you need on the night to win the game. He can't do everything for you. You need to put some sort of quality in front of him. And the same also has to go for the defense as well. The D have to do their job as well. But right now, Fife's big problem is scoring goals, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, let's turn our attention over to the Challenge Cup just quickly before we move on, and start off with the Group A, which obviously we know is, we talked about this last week and we talked about it before coming into the season. Group A is made up of Nottingham, Sheffield, Cardiff, Guildford, Manchester and Coventry, and that's currently how it sits at the moment. Nottingham Panthers are sitting on top there with 6 games played and 10 points. Sheffield Steelers are 3 games played and 6 points, so they haven't dropped a point yet in either league or Challenge Cup. Cardiff Devils are sitting in 3rd, 3 games played, 5 points. Guildford 7 games played, 5 points. Manchester 5 and 4, and Coventry are 4 games played and 2 points. I mean, we talked about this before. Obviously, we know that only one team or whatever it is, or 2 doesn't make it through to the next round. Is it 1 or 2 teams don't make it through to the next round? I mean, it when you look at it that way, you kind of think to yourself, well, yeah, at the moment already you can kind of see, do we already know, and can we already see who it is that's going to be dropping out? I mean, Nottingham may not have scored in their first game. They've only played 1 game in the league, but 6 games played, 10 points, sitting quite strong. 21 games, 21 goals for, 14 goals against. We talked about who was going to take the Challenge Cup this year, and I think both me and you, I think whenever we talked about this, maybe I'm wrong, maybe we agreed playoffs, but I think we talked about that to be something. I think we did agree playoffs, actually, not Challenge Cup, but I think we both agreed that Nottingham would probably be playing towards trying to get something to, obviously this season needs to be something special for them, I think they feel. Do you think Challenge Cup is kind of looking quite strong for the Nottingham Panthers?
I think Challenge Cup is one of the big opportunities for them. If they looking at some of their preseason results, looking at some of the early season league results for them, um, I'm not going to discount them at this early point. We've only played a handful of games in the league, but I think the short game is really where their opportunity lies. Be that Challenge Cup, be that playoffs. I think that's where it can potentially come for them. They are looking very, very strong at the minute. They've played 6 out of their who knows how many group stage games. Trying to remember what Group A plays. Is it one? Is it one home, one away, or two home, two away to each opponent? So does that mean that they've got? Is it 12 games to play? Or one?
Hmm.
No, it must be. Sorry, one home, one home, one away. Honestly, Challenge Cup, I don't care. Every time I talk about the Challenge Cup, I want to slam my head through my desk. Um, I just know that there's a difference between it. I know that Group B just I get geographically it makes sense and it makes the travel easier for Belfast as well as the 3 Scottish teams. But really, why is it not two groups of 5? I really just hate this format. I hate the Challenge Cup, except when we win it.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Group B, we obviously have the Belfast Giants, Fife Flyers, Dundee Stars, and the Glasgow Clan. Belfast are currently leading in Group B, 4 games played and 8 points, so they haven't dropped a point yet in the Challenge Cup. Fife Flyers are sitting in second, 5 games played and 5 points. Dundee Stars are in third, 7 games played, 5 points, and Glasgow Clan have played 4 games and they've got 4 points from those 4 games. So Fife Flyers, contrary to what they look like in the current league, and they're kind of running the league, they're kind of maybe holding strong at the moment in the Challenge Cup. Same again, 17 goals for in Fife and 19 goals against. So not just as the goal difference there maybe just isn't as stark as what it is in the league. So it's interesting to see that there's a difference for them in 2 different competitions.
There has been, but I would hazard that the Flyers, the games that they played the Challenge Cup, and again we're going to come on to talk about this, was when they were fielding a slightly bigger squad for a particular reason. Um, I don't think that given the current situation and the current statements that have been made from the Flyers organization, I don't think those 5 games in the Challenge Cup give a true picture of where the Flyers currently are. Now I know that they're going to get Martin Littell back this weekend. They're making a big point that Littell is going to hit the ice this weekend. But again, one man's not going to make all the difference, and there are much more significant problems in Kirkcaldy with what's going on with their roster at the minute.
Yeah, yeah. John, anything else to add about League or Cup before we move on?
Nah, let's just ignore it.
Let's do it then. Let's get stuck into our period 1 of hockey. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of news stories from around the UK. John, you have added the 3 stories, the 3 main stories for this period. We also do have a penalty box for this period, which we'll move on to once we've covered these 3 stories. So, do you want to kick us off? Let's stick with Fife since we're talking about Fife.
Yeah, let's keep it in Kirkcaldy. There sad days in Kirkcaldy this past weekend. Whenever they lined up against the Guildford Flames on Sunday, for the first time in the club's history, they did not field any British or homegrown skaters in their squad. Every single skater on the game sheet was an import. That's shocking for a club like the Flyers, who have the backbone of the Kirkcaldy Ice Hockey Club behind them, with the youth development, which is incredibly well known across British hockey, and with teams like the Kestrels. Now, they've gone to the Kestrels recently here to go and grab a backup netminder, which we'll talk about why they've done that. But not a single skater was a British skater, and not a single homegrown skate hit the ice that night against Guildford. That's a sorry situation for the oldest club in the league to be in. I mean, Marty, what's your take? Clearly, there's roster issues going on here, but how do Fife fix this?
I mean, I'm genuinely surprised by it because we've always talked about in the past. We've always talked before about how I'm not saying Fife led the way, but Fife have always been the one team that you could count on to have either British/Scottish born local homegrown talent playing on their roster. And it's well known that they've had players coming out of Fife who've done and done great things in the league and various different bits and pieces. So to see this roster for this past weekend and to see that they had no locals, no British talent at all on the roster, it was definitely a shock. I mean, is it just that they are trying, or is it that they are trying to kind of recoup or trying to kind of save face the fact that they have started poorly in the league run and they're trying to maybe just kind of they feel their strength is in their their non-Brit core, their players that are their traditional players. Do they feel that that's where the power is and that's where they've got more chance? I don't know. I'm just genuinely surprised. I think they do need to kind of think about the fact that, like, they've been well known for it in the past, and going back to that form, because I think even their own fan base probably have grown accustomed to the fact that they have local homegrown talent. We know here, even in Belfast, we don't have many Belfast homegrown players that are played consistently in Belfast, but we know that when we do have our Northern Irish, should we say, not just Belfast, our Northern Ireland players playing on the team, we know it gives a bit of a boost, and we know the fans get a bit of a boost by that. And we know how important it is to have the Brit core here in Belfast as well. You've got your Kieran Longs, and you've got your Whistles, that all those kind of players, and you kind of think to yourself, they're key players for this team for Belfast. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Is it injury? Is it, and that's simply what it is, and maybe that's why they didn't have any on, or I'm just trying to think
If it
what
is
would.
if it is injury, there's been no word from the team that it's been injury related. Now it'll be interesting to see what we get on their rosters this weekend, and whether this issue continues. My biggest issue with it is that the way that the Elite League is structured, the Brits give you depth in your lineup. Every single team knows that. You go out and you get the best imports that you can get, and you might have a top line, or some of the bigger teams might have two top lines of imports. We've seen with the likes of Belfast and Sheffield, Cardiff as well, that occasionally Brits will get into those top lines because they are the best of the best of the British available players, and they can add something to these top end imports. Look at the Keith Lloyd Garside line from years ago. Mark Garside added something to that line. It was a notorious line in Belfast. It was notorious across the Elite League. There have been many, many other examples I'm not going to go into. But what the Brits do is allow the imports to not limit their ice time, but to manage their ice time. And clearly, what's happened, the Flyers against Guildford weren't even able to play 3 forward lines. They had 2.5 forward lines. You are not going to win against Guildford, of all places. Now, Tom Coolan, I massively respect the guy. I respect what he's done in Fife. I think he's been a massive breath of fresh air. Now, I don't know if this decision has come from ownership, or a lack of investment, or a lack of putting the Brits in their place of importance as they deserve to be within the lineups. I don't feel like it's a Tom Coolan issue. If it is, then there's a much bigger significant issue that Tom needs to redress there, because he needs to realise that the Brits are really important. But he complains about the league timetables. He complains about the travel, and he did it again this weekend. He complained about having to go down to Guildford after having played the night before, and he said, "We're away at 5:45 in the morning to get down there to play the game. No other league does this." That's fine, Tom. No other league does it. You've been here for a year. You know that we do it, and you should have known that we do it when you took the job last year. You need to play to the league that you are paid to manage this club in. 2.5 lines of forwards is not enough to go to Guildford and get a win. I'm sorry. The Guildford Flames, as they did, will roll that team and will just go through them. If they don't do it in the first couple of periods, by the time the third period comes round and your top two lines have already clocked something like 15 minutes of ice time, you're absolutely out of the game. It doesn't matter. Your guys are not going to carry through that. Shane Owen is not going to carry you through that game. And that's the result, is that sort of loss. On the road, and then you make it worse by complaining about the travel schedule. No, the travel schedule's not your problem. It's the lack of depth in your lineup. It's the lack of bodies in your lineup. There's no lack of them. We've seen lots of conversation about Brits and development and whether the Elite League's development league. It doesn't matter. Teams like Fife, like Dundee, like Manchester, they need to take the risk on these guys. Clearly, there is a need in Fife and the risk needs to be taken. Whether that's you pull guys up who are willing and able from the Kestrels, or you start looking elsewhere, either in the SNL or in the NIHL. These guys have to be given an opportunity, because otherwise fans are going to see more results like that and teams are just going to go down the tubes. And I thought that was shocking to see not a single homegrown player on that squad for the first time in that team's storied history. Absolutely awful.
100%. 100%. Sticking with Fife, they obviously have announced this past week that the club have parted ways with goalie Bryson Price. He's released, and basically they've moved to sign a new player to the club. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so now Cameron Kenny, he joined the club. He's come through the Kirkcaldy Ice Hockey Club sort of juniors program, playing for the Kestrels, and has stepped up. Now, he was the only homegrown player on the lineup for the Guildford game, but clearly as the backup to Shane Owen, he didn't touch the ice that night, so he got 0 minutes. So effectively, he was there to open the door. The effective sacking of Brython Priest is incredibly interesting, given Brighton's sort of background and where he's come from. He's played for the Blaze, he's played for the Dundee Stars, and then this year was signed by the Fife Flyers, and that looked to be a great little move for the Flyers to bring in a guy who'd spent his time, gone through development, looked to be an incredibly solid homegrown backup netminder that you could lean on for a handful of games throughout the season if an injury occurred to Shane Owen. Now, this is not to put down Cameron Kenny. I haven't seen the guy play, so I don't know where he is skill-wise as in relation to Brython Priest. But looking from the outside as a couch coach, I don't see the two measuring up, to be totally honest. This is a real surprise. And now, whether there's other issues going on, because so far Bryson hasn't signed with any other team. So maybe there's other things going on in the background there that we're not party to. If it is, then that's totally fine. And Fife have gone and found something to plug the gap, at least for now. But on the other side, they've also brought in another import netminder, in the shape of what's his name again? Janis Voris has signed, and he's coming across from the Erstliga. Now, that makes matters worse in Fife, because now they're potentially talking about having an import duo.
Yeah.
How do you do that if you're not going to ice Brits? Because the roster regulations are there. I even did one of my stupid TikToks in the preseason was about it, about the fact that to have this sort of tandem duo, to ice your full number of imports, you've got to have... Now, they've got Cameron Kenny signed to the club, so yes, they've hit that, but they're going to hit import limits. So what are they going to do? Start sacrificing out skaters so that they've got a tandem duo on the ice? The other thing this does, by bringing in another import, it says we don't have confidence for the full season in Shane Owen.
Yeah, I did notice that the statement that was put up by Coach Tom Cullen, he did say, I felt that we need to add an experienced player to our goaltending depth, while also giving an upcoming young local in Cam Kenny the opportunity to face quality shooters on a daily basis. Both these players will support our starter, Shane Owen, over the long haul. So they're clearly saying Shane Owen is our starter. He's the one we're going with, but we're going to have these two as our backups in case we need it. But yeah, I agree. Bringing in and spending the money and using another one of their cards to bring in another import is a bit of a surprise. But I guess they feel
I don't get
it.
the roster moves in Kirkcaldy. I really, really don't. And what's worse is, I know we're spending a lot of time talking about Fife so far tonight, but that team on paper, now I know a team on paper is not the same as a team on ice, but they looked, I'm gonna say it, they looked shit hot. And they looked like something that should have delivered a lot through the season. There's a reason that I picked them in my predictions going into the season. It wasn't just because here I am living 20 minutes away from the rink now, but it's I genuinely saw something that looked really interested about the squad and how it was being put together. That's evaporated in 3 weeks, 4 weeks of Elite League action. It's just desperate times. Desperate times.
Yeah. Let's change our attention and move across to another Scottish team, and that's Glasgow Clan. They're announcing also departure this week as well. I think that was it today it was announced?
It was literally an hour before we came on to the podcast. This was the announcement that Cade Nielsen, of course, the son of Corey Nielsen, will be leaving the club and pursuing a nice opportunity in North America. He'll be heading to the ECHL with an, as yet, I believe, unreleased team. So I think the signing of Cade was always intended to be short term. But given Glasgow's run of form, I think that I would be very, very worried to be losing a player of the caliber of Cade. I think he will have been part of what's righted that ship after pre-season, and has seen them pick up a couple of wins. So another Scottish team really potentially going to struggle here. And the fact that this is obviously a Brit who's going to be sort of moving on. I think he's a dual national, so he'll be a big loss to that roster.
Yep.
It was also interesting as well because this past weekend, sorry, saw the two Nielsen boys actually line up against each other, which is why I made that sort of foot and mouth comment when we were talking about the lineups and the coaches, because I got completely mixed up about who was coaching where.
No, you know what? Whenever I seen this, I thought, yep, I can see exactly how John got confused or how he got that mixed up. I completely see it. You having two different Nielsen boys in two different teams, both teams that their dad was a coach for at one point. I totally get it. It made sense.
Can I just say as well? I've just noticed that there's a potential rumor about where Cade is actually heading to, and it might be the Swamp Rabbits, the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. So it's not 100% confirmed, I don't think, just yet, but that's potentially where he's heading to in the ECHL.
That's it. Period one. We don't have any more stories in period one, but we do have
It's been an incredibly quiet week in hockey, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah. I think I texted you boys earlier today. Kind of made a bit of a joke, but it was being serious. It was kind of like it's been a bit of a quiet week. It's very hard. I'm finding it difficult to find the stories this week. But we do have two DOPS decisions in the penalty box segment to discuss. So we'll stuck in to our penalty box for period one. Okay, our penalty box is the stories basically making the headlines, coming from DOPS suspensions and that sort of thing, big hits and all those bits and pieces. There have been two DOPS decisions this past week, both affecting Manchester, I do believe. If I'm, yep, 100%. First one was the Saturday night game in Manchester. The Storm were up against the Belfast Giants. Dallas Earhart was assessed a penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. 9:36, Belfast Giants forward Bobo Carpenter delivered a hit to Storm forward Alexis Oust, which the referees determined to be 2-minute minor penalty for an illegal check to the head. After the hit, both Carpenter and Oust skidded off the ice to rejoin the play. Immediately after seeing this teammate receive the hit, Storm defenseman Dallas Earhart chases after Carpenter and initially slashes him in the torso, to which Carpenter does not react. Earhart then takes matters further by chasing Carpenter up the ice, dropping his gloves, grabbing Carpenter by the collar of his left hand, and delivering a sucker punch, which is right hand to his left side of Bobo Carpenter's face/head area. This is a sucker punch and is not a hockey play. Summarize: he had a 46.5 in the rule book. Dangerous puncher, sucker puncher, which is just hilarious. Effective immediately, Manchester Storm's Dallas Earhart is fined and suspended for 2 games. Do you feel 2 games was the right decision for this particular sucker punch?
I have only seen bits and pieces of this one. So I haven't seen the full incident because, again, as we know, we now no longer get DOPS videos for anything less than 3 games. So I haven't really seen it, but what I have heard is a lot of the conversations that have come from this, and I've seen quite a lot on social media. It looks like it's a fairly appropriate level of ban. What I still struggle with is the lack of clarification on the fines. I would still really like to see that sort of clarified for us about what the fines are, where the money goes. Does it just go to a playoff drinking fund for all 10 owners? Who knows? We'll never know. But yeah, I reckon it was a silly move from him, and hopefully sitting for a couple of games. I think he sat on Sunday, and I think he'll sit again for their first game this weekend. So yeah, it's early doors. Let's see if there's anything else like that, and see if we get any consistency throughout DOPS this season. I'm not holding my breath though.
Yep. Before we move on to our next one, can I just say that because of you, I can't stop thinking every time I see Bobo Carpenter's name. I can't stop thinking of The Simpsons because of you. Because in the off season, whenever Bobo was first announced, you sent, I think it was the GIF or the image of Mr. Burns' teddy bear Bobo. Isn't that right?
It was Maggie holding Bobo.
Yeah, and ever since then, that's all I can think of. So every time I see it, I'm just like, oh, it's a teddy bear. Anyway,
if anyone is better at Photoshop than I am, if someone could take his headshot from the Giants website and put Bobo the bear in there. My only problem is I could just do the really crude stick thing, but what I really want is someone to do it so that Bobo is under the visor, so he actually looks like he's under there. Then I would be very appreciative of that.
I'll give it a try. John, you've got the next one.
Yep, give me a second. So this past Friday in Cardiff, Manchester Storm forward number 14 Lauren Ouellette received a 5-minute penalty plus a game misconduct for slashing. In the third period, with 12 minutes and 20 on the game clock after a legal goal from Cardiff, Storm forward Lauren Ouellette slashed Devils forward 79 Ryan Barrow. Barrow's driving towards the net, where Storm forward number 20 Alex Robert is back-checking. Robert, in an attempt to slow Barrow down, extends his arms and stick, making contact with the back of Barrow's right leg. This causes Barrow to be off balance before contact is made with the Storm goaltender Evan Weiniger, as Barrow is falling to the ice. While Barrow is down on the ice, Storm's Ouellette, who is not part of the original play with Barrow, then skates towards Barrow and in full control and with 2 hands on his stick delivers a dangerous slash to a vulnerable Barrow who's unable to protect himself. This is slashing. It's important to note that this is an intentional and forceful slash delivered to a legal goal. After the slash, Ouellette then continues by delivering a forceful cross-check as well as multiple blows to an unwilling combatant whilst being restrained by the officials. This is an aggressor. And effective immediately, Manchester Storm number 14, Lauren Ouellette, is fined and suspended for 3 games. Now, this one, if you'll give me a moment, I think I can pop this video up. I did try it earlier, but it didn't work properly. So bear with me and we'll give it a shot. Here we go. Oh, it's incredibly small, but never mind. So, Maury, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look at this yet. I have genuinely no idea why that is so small. Give me a moment. Nope, absolutely no idea why it's so small. So the goal being called good is the first thing out of all this. I know that there's been a lot of chat of was it or wasn't it goaltender interference. It's an interesting conversation. It's been seen to go both ways, but take all that aside, Laura Nulette has this is another complete head wobble from a player. He's got no reason to get involved in the way that he does. He's being restrained by officials. He's continuing to deliver blows and slashes to a player who's on the ice on their back and is clearly not in a position to defend themselves. It's not a good look for anyone, to be totally honest. So it shouldn't have happened. Maury, your take on it? Haven't seen it in the tiny little box that I was able to put up on the screen.
I mean, you're talking about, it's just so forceful. Like, I mean, it's multiple blows, just multiple continual blows. He just loses all discipline whatsoever. And the fact that you say, yeah, the fact that the officials have to actually jump in there, restraining what's going on, completely called the right call, I think, on this one. I actually genuinely, it's very hard. Sometimes we do sit here and we think, do Dobbs have it right? Like, we sometimes criticize whatever it is, but in this instance, I will 100% say that I think that they have 100% right in this case. It was just so dangerous. Like, yeah, completely right.
Yep.
I think that's it. We've got 2 penalties for this period, and that's them both covered. We have all the stories for period 1 covered. I think then we'll just move on to period 2 of hockey. I'll just continue, seeing as Dave's not here to intro this part of the episode.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here, man. Period 2 is a roundup of stories from the rest of the world. Mainly, we're going to focus just quickly, and well, not quickly. We're going to focus in this period a bit around, obviously, the NHL, as we normally do most of the time in period 2. But the NHL kicks off this coming weekend, the 4th, 5th, and 6th of October. And it starts off this year, as it has done in the last few years, in the form of the Global Series, which will see the New Jersey Devils and the Buffalo Sabres open the NHL regular season with 2 games in Prague this coming weekend. Obviously, we know how important the Global Series is. The games will be on Friday and Saturday, which means that the Prague will be, this will be the 9th time, I think, that Prague will have hosted games. So in total, so it'll be game 8 and game 9 in Prague. So they held it quite often. Stockholm, Sweden is the only other location outside of North America which has had more games than Prague. 2 more international games will be played in Finland, in very common, somewhere we all know quite well, Tampere. And that'll be on November the 1st and 2nd, when the Florida Panthers will face off against the Dallas Stars, and that's November time. So again, part of this global series. But basically what we're saying is the NHL starts this coming weekend with the opening of those games in Prague. John, just kind of wanting to get your thoughts in. Obviously the weekend, we're from our next episode onwards, we'll start talking a bit more about the NHL. Some more news will come out, and we'll starting to look at the NHL as we move through the season. Your thoughts and hopes for this coming season, shall we say, for not just your own team, but for the NHL yourself? What are you expecting this coming season?
For the Preds, I'm hoping for playoffs and a better showing than what we had last season. From the NHL in general, to be honest, there's only one big story in the NHL going into this season, and it's, can Ovi stay healthy through a whole season, and can he hit the numbers? Can he hit the record? If he does, if he surpasses the great ones, numbers, then I think it's a season that will never be forgotten. Uh, those are my two sort of biggest things potentially that are coming out of this season. Um, I'll be honest, I don't really follow a lot of the preseason stuff. Although we have a story later on about an interesting story out of preseason, but really I don't follow it. I don't really put too much stock in the preseason results because they tend to be connected to camps and development, and a lot of the guys, while you will see a lot of the big stars that you're going to see through regular season, there's also massive swings in the rosters at this point. So really, you're not going to learn a whole lot about what your team is going to be like going down the stretch. So I'll give it a few weeks. We'll give it through the global series, and we'll see how it goes. Surely, Marty, we are due the global series to be over here in the UK at some point. Surely at some point, we've got to see games played between sort of Belfast, Sheffield, and Nottingham. Surely, between those three arenas, we can host some NHL teams again. Because let's face it, yesterday, and I'm only going to say it because of a particular number, it's 14 years since the Boston Bruins played in Belfast against an Elite League Belfast Giants select team, which you tried to convince me at the time because I was just getting back into hockey at the time and it was being advertised. I just met you and you were saying, you should really get a ticket for this. They're going to go really fast. I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's like, I don't know. I'll decide later on. I'll think about maybe a day after you told me the tickets were all completely gone. I had absolutely no chance of getting a ticket. It's to this day, it's the one game when I lived in Belfast that I still desperately, desperately wish that I'd gone to.
Yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal night. For anybody who was there on the night, obviously it was a Belfast Giants select team made up of various players from across the whole of the Elite League, playing against the Boston Bruins, and seeing those big Boston Bruins players and the names, those familiar names, famous names of the time, on the ice in the arena was just something that will always stick with me. And I guess the one thing that always stands out is the fact that the Belfast Giants, for one part of the game, led the game, one goal up. And just looking up at the old screens,
The old
the
scoreboard.
old scoreboard above in the center ice, just the memory of looking up at that and Belfast Giants 1, Boston Bruins 0 was just like phenomenal. But yeah, 14 years ago, it's just crazy when you say 14 years. And I think you're right. I think it's about time. I think the UK in general, I think, should be seeing this global series at some point. And I think the NHL have made it very clear, and I think they've made a statement at some point in the past that they felt that, they know that the product needs to expand and how do they build the product in the NHL. And I think they probably know there's a core following um in the UK, but to kind of back that they're backed up by obviously putting their faith in maybe holding a game or two in the UK somewhere. Now, it might not be Belfast. They may feel it's not big enough in Belfast. Maybe they'll think something like Nottingham, which obviously has a bigger capacity and is also the National Ice Arena. Maybe that's the option they go for, but it'd be good. It'd be nice to see a global series, two NHL teams playing out face off against each other uh, in the UK would be something I know I would love to see.
We've said it for a long, long time though, because Belfast, and I'm only saying this because I'm a fan, Belfast and Nashville are twin cities. So when do we see that actually mean something? Uh, and the clear and obvious way to do it is to bring the Preds along with one or two other teams to Belfast. Now the global
Yep.
series is always a number of games. It's never just one game. It's minimum two teams who will do a couple of games. Normally it's more. Normally it's three, maybe four teams who travel over, and will play games in multiple locations across that country. You're saying it might not be Belfast. Why not Belfast? There are three arenas that are ready to take it. And I said what they were. It's Belfast, it's Sheffield, it's Nottingham. Those three arenas are just crying out for an event like that. Now, Belfast is already on the map, and we're going to talk about the Friendship Four in a minute. But the Friendship Four has put the British hockey scene and the Elite League right on the map when it comes to ice hockey and with its exposure to the North American market. And we're starting to see that pay off. We talk about it a lot. We talk about the players who come from U Sports and from sort of that level, but we're known within scouting. We're a known league now. We're a known avenue for these guys to get into the slightly more professional side of the game, and then potentially progress into other leagues in Europe or go back to places like the ECHL. Now, if that's not something the NHL wants to build on, I don't know what we have to do to get them back over here. But like I say, the clear and obvious one to me is Belfast. You've got a twin city. Now, I don't know what cities that Nottingham and Sheffield might be twinned with in North America. Maybe there's an opportunity to do something there along with those twin cities. But NHL, get your finger out. There's thousands of hockey fans waiting to flood into arenas if you come back to the UK.
Anthony's making a good point here. He's saying that 3 arenas are ready, but none of them are big enough for an NHL game. I would tend to agree with you, Anthony, but I would also argue that these global series games, if I remember correctly, they played in Australia or somewhere last year. The had 2 games there, and I think the arena wasn't that much. The arena that they played in there wasn't that much bigger capacity wise than the UK ones, and I think for the global series, I like to think that maybe the global series is a slightly different kettle of fish in that a 7, 8, 9,000 capacity would probably be maybe enough for what they're looking to aim to do with the global series. Are they going to have a mass amount of the team's own fans following them across to Europe? It's more for the people in those cities to kind of, or in those kind of countries to kind of maybe get an experience of NHL. I don't know. John?
Can I point out? So Anthony also makes another point here. The smallest NHL rink is Winnipeg, 15,000. Okay, that's the current situation. What have we had in Arizona for the last 3 seasons before that team moved to Utah? We had the Mullet Arena. So don't tell me that the NHL won't play in small arenas. Now, don't get me wrong, the Arizona Coyotes were Gary Bettman's pet project that he refused to let die until they were basically dying and rotting on the ice. And couldn't get their feet under them as an organization. That's why we've got Utah now. Let's not play around with it. We might see them back again. We might not. Who cares? But don't tell me the NHL won't play in small arenas when they were playing in an arena that is smaller than the 3 that I've just mentioned. So it can be done. The NHL is willing. They want to put the market out there. They want to accept that it's that they've got a market here in the UK, and I get that the NFL, they're going to London this weekend. They do Wembley, and yes, I get it. Wembley is comparable to a lot of the stadiums that the NFL has played in over in the States. But these leagues know that they've got a market here. They know that people will pay those ticket prices, and let's be honest, will pay more than the atrocious prices at Dundee to go and watch NHL. So we'll pay Dundee Stars prices to go and see them. Don't get me wrong. We'll do it. We'll do it. But I just think it's a missed opportunity to just not do it.
Sticking with the NHL, just quick, obviously that's what we're focusing on at the moment because that's the most of where our main stories are. There was an announcement before you talk about your story, John. Just quickly, I don't know if you've seen this. The announcement of the starting, I think tomorrow, October 4th, globally, we'll see the launch of the on Amazon Prime, a docu-series kind of similar to what they're kind of dubbing it the Drive to Survive NHL version of Drive to Survive. It's that kind of idea. It'll focus on various different players and teams throughout the NHL, and it'll start this coming weekend on Amazon Prime, and that is going to be called Face Off Inside the NHL. Very original. But 6 episodes. We're going to be premiering this coming weekend, and it's across 240 different countries and territories worldwide. So it will be on tomorrow morning here in the UK. I know I'll be giving it a watch because I'm interested to see, but I did see a few clips from some of the stuff that's on there, and I think there's a few controversial little bits and pieces that were captured that people didn't realize were going to be shown, but they're there.
Are you talking about the locker room moments of McJesus during the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yep. That, and also
I've seen a lot of rumors that apparently we're going to see the other side of Connor McDavid, which I think could be very, very interesting given his sort of brand status with the Oilers. So I think that's going to be very interesting. That alone, amongst the fact that I love watching sort of hockey docs and all the rest of it, that alone for me is the hook. The fact that they put that in the trailer, and it was only like a 10-second trailer. It was literally him in the locker room, in the middle of that, and it's really, really, really interesting. Yes, Anthony, I see your comment there. The other side of his personality. What personality? Yeah, I get it. His public persona seems to be that of a cardboard box, that may be slightly damp. Uh, I think we're going to get a look at locker room Connor, which might be very, very different to what he portrays to the wider public.
Now this isn't obviously the first time Amazon Prime has had a documentary style NHL themed product. Obviously they had in 2021 they had All or Nothing, which was the Toronto Maple Leafs multi episode, which
Turns out it
focused.
was nothing.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And also then they had the Chosen One last year, which was another one that had premiered as well. And I suppose different variations. But what is interesting is that Prime Video is now going to hold it, what they're calling Prime Monday Night Hockey. They're going to be streaming all national regular season Monday night games in 2024-2025 season. Now, I don't know if that is specifically something that's going to be in the UK or, sorry, in the US, if it's coast to coast in the US, or sorry, if it's only in the US. But what they're also going to have is a wraparound show on a Thursday night, which is going to be called Coast to Coast, which is going to be also focusing on NHL. Now, if it is only Canada or America, we obviously have a VPN. If you have an Amazon Prime, there you go. If you have Amazon Prime and you have a VPN, I'm not saying, but there's ways and means of watching it if you need to, if you wanted to.
There are. I love a lot of the Amazon stuff that's going on at the minute with their sports stuff. Obviously, Drive to Survive is a Netflix product, and it's really, really good at it. The new ownership of F1 managed to pull in a huge number of new sort of fans to the sport through the personalities that they sort of put out there, like Gunther Steiner. But talking F1 for people on this podcast who are like, what the hell are they talking about? Amazon did a fantastic Six Nations one, Full Contact it was called, and like I like international rugby. I wouldn't be a club rugby guy. I love international rugby. I absolutely love the Six Nations. Like, that I will, when I was in Belfast, I would go to a pub and I would watch almost every Six Nations game when it was going. Even if it was pre-hockey, I'd have a Scotland top on and then a hockey jersey for over it. The docu-series that they're bringing out are absolutely brilliant. So if the NHL one is anything like that Six Nations one, then I'm going to be hooked. And you said that drops tomorrow.
Yeah, 4th of October.
Is it all six? Is it all 6 episodes?
I believe so.
Great. I bet they're about an hour, so I'm gonna have to take a day's leave tomorrow to watch all of that, or just lie and say that I did lots and lots of work.
Hopefully nobody from work. Yeah, I was about to say hopefully nobody from work is checking in on the podcast after. Yeah. But yeah, I will definitely be giving that a watch. John, let's move on to let's stay with the NHL, but let's look at you talked about preseason. Preseason is now officially pretty much over this as of this weekend. But a familiar face from the Elite League appeared as a starting goaltender in the preseason games in the NHL.
Yeah, that's right. So a face familiar to those who are supporters of the Sheffield Steelers and the Manchester Storm would have been slightly pleasantly surprised this last week to note that one Jeremy Brodeur, of course, the son of Devils legend Marty Brodeur, got start in preseason for the New Jersey Devils against the Rangers and took the win. So cue all the social media storm from funny enough, from the Storm fans, all claiming that Jeremy Brodeur was formerly of their parish in Altrincham, and clearly that was where he made a name for himself, not just being a Brodeur. And wasn't it fantastic that this young guy coming up through the sticks through Manchester I mean, before that, obviously, having played 0 games, but having signed with the Sheffield Steelers. Of course, that was in the ill-fated 2019-20 season, which was cut short. He was signed sort of halfway through the season, or slightly more than halfway through the season, before it was then knocked in the head thanks to COVID. So he never actually iced for the Sheffield Steelers. I remember us talking on this podcast about the fact that he'd signed and how fantastic it was going to be, but it was great to see him ice here in Manchester for that short period of time. Played 36 games, save percentage 9.917. So he did a good job for them there. But it's always nice when us lowly elite league people get to sort of claim those little connections like that. And like I said, I don't really watch and follow the preseason stuff, but it was really, really nice to be able to go, wee Brodeur, they're getting a win in preseason. Good man.
Yeah, also in the Jersey Devils, obviously their new head coach there has a Belfast connection, as we know, with Kiefer taking over from moving from Toronto to the New Jersey Devils.
Do you reckon that Sheldon, when he was sort of looking at potentially starting him, maybe lifted the phone to Adam and said, "Here, see those couple of times that you faced Jeremy Brodeur? Was he any good?"
We have one last story in this period, which goes back to something you had mentioned earlier on, and that is the Friendship Four.
Yeah, so this was the news last week that broke. Well, I say broke. I think part of it was fairly well known already. But this is the fact that the Friendship Four will return to Belfast both in 2025 and 2026. In 2025, the 4 teams will be Miami, RIT, Sacred Heart, and Union. Sacred Heart, Union, and Boston University. And in 2026, there will be a really cool little flip on the tournament. And this is that there will be 4 women's teams who will play in the inaugural Women's Friendship Four. That will be Boston University, Harvard, Quinnipiac, and Minnesota Duluth will play in the first Women's Friendship Four in 2026, which I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. I'm interested to see. So, whenever they talked about, I didn't read the full story, and maybe you can kind of, I don't know if the stories out there and if they went into a lot of detail for the women's first Friendship Four tournament, where they're going to have the 4 teams over rather than the 2 friendship series or whatever they call it when it had the 2
Yep.
women's teams like they did this year. Are they saying that the 4-team Friendship Four week is that going to be a weekend in November, like traditionally the men's one is, or have they still going to stay that for like a January thing?
I think it's gonna be that now. I don't know if there's also the men's competition going on or not, but I was actually trying to open the story and it's just not opening at all. So I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to think that we might get both. I'd like to think we'll get the women's Friendship Four and the Friendship Four, the men's Friendship Four. I do remember seeing a lot of posts about Quinnipiac coming back because they were very, very well received in Belfast when the men's team came across. They brought an enormous contingent with them as well. They were kind of like Clarkson in that I'm pretty sure they brought their brass band as well, and they kind of took over Boomerang for the tournament, which was, again, absolutely brilliant. Although I still stand the Clarkson Golden Knights brass band was hands down the greatest entertainment I've ever seen in the SSE arena, with the exception perhaps of during the World Championships when I watched Rod Stewart nearly fall out the box, absolutely pissed watching his son play for GB.
I guess my query really around it was obviously the friendship series. Unfortunately, and I think this is one of my main complaints that I've always had about the friendship series, the women's friendship series that has been on, and it's the same thing this past friendship series, which happened this past January. My main gripe and my main annoyance about it all, and I made it clear on this podcast coming into that whole week, that weekend, those games, there was absolutely zero promotion of the women's game. Absolutely none. There were free games, fair enough. Free games, that's okay. But the fact that they made them free didn't put any kind of real effort into promoting the fact that there was 2 women's teams UCAA women's teams playing a competitive game was very disappointing to me, because I just felt like they put all of their force in behind promoting the Friendship 4 Series men's games. They are doing that right now. They're heavily promoting it. We're getting Belfast Giants season ticket holders are getting emails about it constantly. We're seeing it on social media channels, not just the Friendship 4 series, Friendship 4 channels, but also the Belfast Giants social media channels. If you look back, say December time last year, coming up to the Friendship Series with the women's games, if you look back, the Belfast Giants social media was barely used to even highlight the fact that the games were coming up. It was only the Friendship 4 social media channels that were being used, and a lot of the fans in Belfast would probably, higher majority of the fans in Belfast would probably be following Belfast Giants social media than they would be Friendship 4 social media. And I think I was very disappointed about it. So all I'm trying to say is they need to make a success of the women's Friendship 4. If they're promoting it the way they have done, they need to push it forward.
I've finally got it open. I've confirmed. So it is a January-based 4-team friendship series, and I completely agree with you. I think you're 100% right. I think I went to the first friendship series when it took place in Belfast. That was before I left, and I honestly would put the quality of the hockey that was on display by the two teams who were there on a par with the Friendship 4. The fact that they're competitive, sort of in like regular season competitive games, means that the players that are coming over, they're not just sort of flown over the night before, pushed onto the ice and say go and play an exhibition game. That's not what it is. The organization of it is incredibly good. The way that the players on both the men's and the women's competitions, they're treated incredibly well. It's treated like a proper competition. But you're right. The way that it's advertised, the way that it's put out, is just not on a par with the men's competition, with the Friendship 4. Obviously, as a girl dad, I would like to see that improve, because I want to, in the future, when my daughter's a little bit older, I want her to see me potentially talking about this through the podcast, through whatever our social media channels are going to look like in 10 years. I'm probably going to be sending brainwave messages to people through some chip in the back of my head. I don't know what it's going to be, but I want to see me be enthused by the level of excitement that's generated through the main team, through the organization. I'd even love to see the league get involved with this a little bit more, because the league have to see the value in this. We now know that the other teams see it. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, and you might disagree with me on this. I would like to see a domestic pause for the Friendship 4. I would like to see a domestic pause for the Friendship 4 and the Friendship Series. Now, I know that's asking a lot. It's asking a lot for 2 weekends out the season to have no competitive games. But let the fans from elsewhere in the Elite League come across to it. Because in Belfast, the way it's arranged, especially with the Friendship 4, is the Giants have an away weekend. It's basically treated as if there's a concert on in the arena. They have no ice availability. The Giants go on the road. But so we've got all the fans in Belfast have that opportunity. But the other teams in the league, they've got games on. So you're not going to draw the crowd from elsewhere unless you give them that opportunity, you give them that space, and you let them come across to experience those games, because they are fantastic games. They're some of the fastest and some of the heaviest hitting games that you'll actually see over here. They're absolutely incredible. They're on a par, if not skill-wise, like that, more than a lot of Elite League games, I would actually say.
I would agree.
The same goes for the women's. The same goes for the women's game. And I know people will be detractors of this, and it's like, oh, there's not even domestic pauses for some of the international stuff for GB. I get it. Like, there wasn't for a long time. We've had some recently. So why not for this as well? Because this brings a huge market to the Elite League and to our game.
Last thing just to note on this before we move on is I kind of agree in some bits with you in terms of, I guess the Giants obviously this past season, or like in January, this past Friendship Series, they tried to ensure that there was a Belfast Giants game in the evening time after the Sunday game. I think it was Saturday game, Saturday afternoon game, women's game, and then the Belfast Giants I think faced off later on that evening, or it was maybe the Sunday. It was the Sunday. They had an early face-off, 12 o'clock face-off for the women's game, and then the Belfast Giants were playing at 4 o'clock. So they tried to utilize that kind of thing. But for anybody who says, or anybody who wants to argue differently that there is a lot of promotion put in, and that there's the same on par promotion, or put into the women's as there is the men's, I would probably argue differently, having been to both competitions and seeing just even the size of the crowds at both competitions, and seeing significantly larger crowds at the men's game, which has to be paid for. Now, yes, local clubs and local schools and stuff get complimentary tickets, whatever it is, and they obviously build up. They probably make up the majority of the Friday night kind of capacity, the Friday capacities crowds. But the Saturday one, I would argue, is more punters paying their own money to come to the games, and there's more. This past Friendship 4 series, there's more people attended on the Saturday night games for the Friendship 4 series than free women's hockey games that were on during that Friendship series. And even I went to the Friendship series with my female members of my family, my in-laws and stuff. And I think even a comment was made by one of them about how, as a woman, they were disappointed to see that the fact that it had to be a free game in order to get people to come along to it. And I think, yeah, I think it's a mix of just people are a bit like women's game, but also I think it's a mix of just, was there enough promotion being put in? I don't want to harp on about it, but was there enough promotion put in? I would argue no. Anyway, let's move on. Do we have any more stories in this period, John?
No, I think that is us all set for period 2.
Great. We will move into period 3 of hockey.
Period 3 is our general Knocky
news.
Knocky news is for anything and everything else in the world of hockey that doesn't fit neatly into period 1 or period 2, or generally speaking, it's either jerseys or we just think the other two periods are far too full. I think it's the latter this time around. Actually, it's a mix of both. To be totally honest, we've got one story and one jersey to talk about in this period. Marty, I'm going to let you start off with an interesting story about summer rests.
Yes, this past week, you wouldn't think there was a current war going on between Russia and the Ukraine, but this past week there was an ice hockey game. We all know President Putin is a massive fan of ice hockey, having put on the skates himself and skating regularly for different variations of hockey teams across in Russia. I think most important, one of the most famously ones was like the Dynamo Red Star, whatever they're called. Sorry, Anthony can correct me on that one. I can't remember what their full title is. But this past week there was a match against the let me see, hang on, I've lost the thing. Sorry, 2 seconds. Let me bring it back up again. There was a match against the Federal Security Services (FSB) Phantom team, as well as a squad of Putin's own team, spy hockey team, as it was called. There was shall we say, a brawl or a few punches thrown at the rival team, i.e. the spy team, which resulted in the team throwing the punches being arrested following the game for hooliganism, which is a crime with a possible 7-year prison term. Did you read the story yourself, John? What did you think?
So my understanding is that there was one team was made up of FSB agents.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, if you don't know, the FSB is what the KGB turned into after the fall of the Soviet Union. So it's their sort of special security force. And the other team was just made up of sort of average Joe Russian hockey players, sort of off the street type thing. They're turned into a bit of argy-bargy, and the FSB have, let's say, abused potentially their position, and rather than, like we do in hockey, you leave it out on the ice, you take a couple of digs, you fall to the ice and you let it go. They've taken their position, shown their warrant cards, and taken the guy straight to jail.
I mean, imagine like you imagine it happen in a normal game. Imagine like I mean, hilarious. Like I mean, if if imagine just like you thinking, all right, they embarrassed us so much that we needed to retaliate in some way, and the way we retaliate, we just arrest everyone. Not
I don't
sure.
even want to read that one out loud because I think if I do, I might turn up on some sort of checklists. But if you're on the visual podcast, have a little read of Anthony's comment there. I'm not reading that out.
Funny. For anybody who isn't on the video podcast, I will read it out. Anthony saying, not sure of the name of Putin's team in these games, but led to believe they're very big on getting into someone else's zones. Very true. Yeah, I mean, hilarious. Like a completely just humiliation is probably what it was. Humiliation then leads to detention of players. I mean, you couldn't write it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, crazy Russia. Right, we all know what period 3 is about. It's about jerseys, and we have the first of the special jerseys from a very particular team who very much love their special jerseys. And here it is, everyone. The Belfast Giants have revealed their Oktoberfest jerseys. So this leads on from last season, where I don't actually think it was the first sort of special jersey they had, but this season it will be the first special jersey they have. This is their Oktoberfest jersey. So last season, remind me, Marty, they kind of used the home jersey, sort of teal jersey, and had like brown lederhosen on it.
Mm-hmm.
This season, they've kind of gone for effectively the color switch, the opposite version of this, and they've gone with the white jersey with some sublimated details, which I was interested enough earlier to zoom in and have a look and see what they were. So I'll tell you if you don't know. And then they have teal lederhosen this year. Again, they've got the... no, I always get this wrong. I'm wrong to say suspenders because that's something else. It's the other one. What's the other one? That's not the sexy one. Although I'll be honest, it's only sexy depending on who's wearing it. When it's me, it's always sexy.
I actually can't remember. What are they called?
Braces.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean,
what's your thoughts on the jersey first and foremost, Marty?
I mean, I was one of the ones on this podcast last year that was guilty of enjoying the absurdness of last year's Oktoberfest jerseys. And I know there was a lot of arguments around the fact that like last year's Oktoberfest didn't actually happen around Oktoberfest, but this year's Oktoberfest game is happening in and around actual October. Oh, there we go. It's happening around Oktoberfest, and actually Oktoberfest is happening in Belfast. They've got the tent up at the moment in Custom House Square, and I'm going to say it again. I'm a fan. I'm fully in. I love the Oktoberfest jersey. What I like about this one, and John, I don't know if this is what you were going to mention, but if you zoom in on the actual jersey itself and you look at the white of the jersey and you look at the little ghost on the jersey, there's beer hops on the jersey, which I just love as a nice little nod to beer and a creation of beer. And yeah, I don't know. I just like it. It looks a bit more subtle this year. It's not as, I don't think it's as in your face this year as what last year's was. It's a bit more toned down compared to last year's. Some people might think that's actually a bit better because it is toned down a bit more, but I mean, yeah, I like it. Yeah, I do. I like it. You're probably going to go, you hate it because you didn't like last year, so you probably don't like this year.
I just hate it. I'm really sorry. I just don't like it at all. I can't find a way to like it. I really dislike the crossing of the bands across the back. I think it makes the name and number look really difficult to read. I do not envy the commentators on the webcast this weekend. So to point out, this is going to be worn this Saturday at the home game in the SSE Arena. I can't find a way to like it at all. I don't like the design. I really dislike the. I don't know. I think it's a hangover of last year. We talked this over to death at the end of last season about the number of special jerseys. I get that they're for a purpose. I get that they're revenue building. I also get, having had conversations with people, that Belfast and some other teams are in a really privileged position that they can kind of fork out to do all these and generate. They've got the available capital to generate additional revenue by making these and paying for this and bringing the money in. There's a lot of other teams can't make a new jersey every 3 weeks and then bring in all that extra cash into the club.
Yep.
It would be great if they all could, because that would level the playing field, but a lot of the teams just can't. I still really, really struggle with the sort of disguising of the team colors and the team, the effect that a jersey has, and the identity is what I'm trying to get to here. When you have so many special jerseys, the team identity disappears. Now, I know that you like the home jersey. Was it the home jersey this season that you liked, Marty? So you're sort of often you're either buying one or you've bought one already. So you like the home jersey.
Yep.
Generally speaking, you would expect to see that jersey more than any other jersey or jerseys during the regular season when you're watching the Giants in the SSE. We know from having looked at that just wasn't the case last season.
Yeah.
They had a home jersey. They didn't wear it. They didn't wear it at the majority of home games.
I did see that someone, a Belfast Giants fan, I did see a comment whenever these were put up, was like, oh great, 50% of the games played so far at the SSA Arena has resulted in only once will the home jersey be worn, and already we've got a special jersey, i.e. there's been 2 games so far this season in the SSE, but this is already they have a special jersey this weekend, and we're going to see another special jersey. I guarantee by the time we comes to our next podcast in 2 weeks time, we hopefully will be doing our regular period 3 roundup of jerseys, because we'll probably have a lot of the teams releasing their Halloween jersey by that point, I would say, leading up to the Halloween games. So there'll be another Belfast Giants special jersey, Halloween jersey, at the end of this month. So we potentially have 3 games this month where we won't see a special jersey and they'll actually play in their home jersey. But the only thing I will say about this jersey is, and I'll come back to you, I get what you mean about the brand identity and stuff. The one thing I will say before we move on from this is I am a bit disappointed that the Belfast Giants logo, the Giants like branding, is like the actual like Finn brand isn't there. It just says Belfast Giants, and I'm never a fan of it just saying Belfast and then Giants. It just, I know that it's part of their, what do they call it? It's not the brand, it's the, I can't remember what they call the font thing.
Word mark.
Like the word mark, whatever it is. I get it, but I'm not a fan of it. I prefer it if it was the logo rather than the actual naming thing. That's just me.
Marty, I'm just going to point out, you said about there being 3 games where they might wear the home jersey. That's not the case. The Giants are only at home twice more through the rest of this month. They've got a game against Glasgow on the 13th, and they've got a game against, I believe it is Coventry on the 19th, and after that, the next home game is the 30th, where we will expect them to wear the Halloween-themed jersey. So actually, through the month of October, 50% of your jerseys are going to be special jerseys.
Yeah, so the 2 more games, as I said, there's 2 games where they'll be wearing their home jersey, and then 1 game where they'll be wearing a special jersey this season or this month.
So it'll be 50-50 with one-offs, and I suppose. And that being said, one of those games, I think the Glasgow game is that depending on whether that's League or Challenge Cup. So they may not even wear teal at that game if it's Challenge Cup, because they'll wear the Challenge Cup jersey.
That is true. I can't remember if they had already announced, because I think they already announced that there would be was it the country thing would be back again, I think this season, I think 2 at some place that was already announced, something like that. So I want to announce the date for that, but who knows?
Listen, I'm not having a go at the special occasions either. I know that a lot of the jerseys that they do, and obviously I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have a discussion about the Giants ones, because I'm not going to go out and buy many jerseys from other teams in the Elite League, if any. They do raise money for a lot of good causes through a lot of these shirt off the back draws, and that's a good thing. But I wonder whether there's an opportunity perhaps to use the warm ups instead. I know that we've talked about it on the other direction with the NHL and the way that they've gone with special jerseys, but they've gone way, way over the other way. They've just said, no, we're doing away with them, except for arena walk ins by players. I think the warm up jerseys are the place to do a lot more of this. I get it's great, it's fun to see the players playing in special jerseys, but honestly, I'd just like to see the brand of the teams protected a little bit more rather than all of these special jerseys. I think there's other ways to do it, and it's just not my cup of tea.
Agreed. Yep. That's it, I think, is it?
I'll let you go, Marty. That's the end of period 3, and I see in our running order that it's incredibly blank the further down I go.
Yep. That is it for stories for this week. We have nothing additional to add, which means that brings our episode this week to an end. As usual, you can check out our website, Door 14 Hockey, which will have all of this episode and all the previous episodes all up there, so you can go out and check that out. You can check out all of our social media channels, get involved, send us your thoughts, your opinions, your questions, whatever you have. Come to the episodes, just check out in John and what he's currently doing on TikTok. Yes, John?
We will. So I need to apologize to everyone who's been following us on TikTok. Hello to all the new followers as well. You're more than welcome to the weird and wonderful world of John on TikTok. Last week, because I was away on holiday and also because I forgot my iPad charger, there was no week 4 sort of preamble. That will be back. I know that we've had already a game yesterday and there's a game tomorrow, but hopefully first thing tomorrow there will be a sort of prep video on TikTok about the games that are upcoming this weekend, so that you can keep an eye on results across the Elite League.
Yep. And yeah, so check out all our social media channels. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, we're missing X, and also I think, are we still on Threads? Is Threads still a thing? If so,
it's
yes,
a thing. It's a thing, but it only ever populates whenever I post something on the Instagram page.
Okay.
I never actually post an actual thread. If anyone's really desperate for us to put out thread content, then let us know and we'll do something. To be honest, until X decided to stop us live streaming, I was very close to knocking Facebook on the head. Sorry, Campbell, but it was going to happen.
But yes, check out all our social media channels. We're there at Door 14 Hockey. We'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions and get involved with the chat. Obviously, anywhere you're downloading or listening to the original audio version of this podcast, the old traditional way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment or a review, whatever it is on your platform of choice. It really does help us in the long run. And also, if you're not already, go over to our YouTube channel, check out the live video versions of our podcast, or at least just give us a subscribe and hit the bell or whatever it is to be notified when we're next going live. John, I think that it is it for this week. That just leaves us to sign off for this episode. I'm Marty.
And John.
Have a great week.